Hello there, I'm Master Dan, and welcome to my new Marvel Genesis reports. What is Marvel Genesis, you ask? Well, a friend of mine and I both really love playing in and running Mutants and Masterminds. We both also happen to be large Marvel fans. Well, we decided that what we wanted to do was we wanted to run a living Marvel game. A game where, we'd run it maybe once a month at our normal gaming events that we go to or have. And, anybody could hop in and play a Marvel hero, and the story would go on from there. Now, here's the trick that we ended up deciding upon. We decided that we were going to reboot the Marvel Universe New 52 style taking place in 2014. Similar to what we're seeing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe with the birth of the Avengers. Well, the idea is that up until this point, no heroes have existed, with exception to, the World War II heroes. I mean, this is generally a reboot of the universe. Heroes that come in and play, players who pick up heroes to play in the games, are newly appearing. Now, granted, you do have Captain America, so he appeared in the past, but you get the gist. Essentially, without going on too much into detail about how it happens, because that's pretty much covered in this first story here, and I'll give some clarification at the end from the first session, but essentially it's, if a player wants to come in and play their favorite hero, and that hero isn't one of the currently appeared heroes, their origin story has just happened prior to this adventure. So, all of their villains, their whole, comic, universe of rogues gallery and supporting characters don't technically exist yet. Though it tells me and my friend what villains that we have access to. So we don't have access to the entire Marvel Universe off the bat. The villains and the supporting characters that we have access to are dependent upon what players choose for their characters. With exception to, since the origin stories haven't happened, characters are kind of like floating in the background. They're just not important yet. So, I think you'll see what I mean here in a minute. But essentially, the first event was run by my friend. He ran the first one, so I was able to play in this one. And I'll be running the next one. Now, in this first event, this is essentially the founding of the Avengers. And that's, what we advertise it as. Essentially, the background for this is that S.H.I.E.L.D., which in this rebooted universe is an international organization that answers not to the U.S. government but to the UN, detected an energy signature on an island off of China. Now, and this energy signature wasn't unlike anything they've ever seen before. Now, Colonel Fury calls in his top energy science that they have under their organization, a real scrying guy by the name of Bruce Banner. He studies this, he studies the readings and everything, but he can't determine what it is. And things start getting worse when it turns out that a large storm is building up around this energy. A storm that is just growing in size and intensity. Well, at a certain point, it is threatening to actually hit the mainland. So China steps up and brings S.H.I.E.L.D. in and asks for help. They didn't want to before. They didn't want to let anyone onto the island before because it turns out the island used to house a prison for political prisoners, and it was, let's just say, what went on there was not always the most, let's just say it would be frowned upon by other countries. And, plus there are some locals there and they didn't want them talking, so generally China didn't want anyone involved. But with this storm growing worse and worse and their own scientists unable to figure out what's going on, they call in S.H.I.E.L.D. for help. So S.H.I.E.L.D. sends in a couple of teams to go investigate. They set up a beachhead they set up a base, a small base. a base of operations. We'll put it there. They set up a base of operations in the local fishing village that's on the island, and they go to investigate. But Fury hasn't heard back from either team. Both of them went missing. There's no contact. Now, they also get hint that other people have noticed this as well. There's, whispers, in the underworld that one of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s largest targets, an organization known as Advanced Idea Mechanics, has also picked up the signal, and they're interested in it as well. Not willing to let AIM get there before them. Nick decides to essentially activate a theoretical. It's not really a theoretical. Activate the Avengers Initiative, pretty much. It's an old protocol that's never been used before, was made in the inception of the 1940s. But he activates it now and gathers up 5 extraordinary individuals in order to send in and deal with this, as his normal agents are just they're disappearing, whether it's AIM's fault or whether it's whatever this energy source is. He needs some exceptional individuals, even more so than his normal agents. So, he gathers up 5 individuals. The first being a freshly thawed out Captain America, who will lead the team, followed by one of Nick Fury's top agents, Black Widow, freshly off of working for the remnants of the KGB. Then he also gathers up a former soldier of fortune, if you will, gone vigilante by the name of, or going by the Punisher, and also an additional vigilante, going under the guise of the Moon Knight. Lastly, a civilian to go with this military team with rather exceptional abilities that Nick Fury's agents have, full awareness of. But they also pick up Daredevil superstar Johnny Blaze. So we have our founding Avengers here by Captain America, Black Widow, the Punisher, Moon Knight, and Ghost Rider. Captain America's in charge because he kind of has to rein in, the tendencies of the others. But 4 out of the 5 of them have military training, so it's real easy for them to get into the military squad role. It's really easy for them to fall into rank and everything, especially for the Punisher, who met Cap in basic training, and, well, essentially who has met Cap, who worships the ground Cap walks on. Apparently, this is the version of, given this is 2014, this is the version of the Punisher who fought in Desert Storm as opposed to Nam. But he still worships the ground that Cap walks on. Cap is, everybody loves Cap, and all of them know who Cap is. Johnny Blaze is amazed that apparently S.H.I.E.L.D. can bring back dead people. But everybody knows who Cap is, everybody knows who Johnny Blaze is, though they don't know he's the Ghost Rider, except for the Punisher, who's essentially heard rumors of certain cities of certain criminals in certain cities dead afraid of a walking skeleton. And essentially he has an idea that Johnny Blaze is the Ghost Rider and is impressed. Now, Black Widow and Cap know each other a little bit because Cap's in the care of. Essentially, you can expect they have the same relationship as in the movies. Moon Knight knows of the others. Black Widow knows a little bit about Punisher and Moon Knight, but otherwise, generally they're generally strangers, except for Cap and Black Widow, who have been under S.H.I.E.L.D. So. Point being, Nick Fury gathers up, tells them the situation, and tells them he's going to send them out to the island, which he shows them videos of, and the strange energy essentially looks like a giant column of energy going out from the middle of the jungle on the island where the prison's supposed to be, up into the sky, and a raging storm just building up around it. He's going to send them in, and it's their job to find out what happened to the villagers, find out what happened to the shield agents, and secure their base camp, and then find out or investigate the energy and stop it if possible. So they can't fly them in because of the storm, but they're able to send in a submarine to deliver them there, which they do. Johnny Blaze isn't too crazy about being on board the submarine because he's nervous of Ghost Rider. He does his best to keep Ghost Rider in check, and generally he's in good humor. He tries to stick around Captain America since he's the only one of them without military training. So he's trying to stick with Captain America, but he's a little nervous on the sub because of the whole Ghost Rider. He doesn't want Ghost Rider to wake up at the wrong time. But they arrive at the island, and they take like a little lifeboat over, and they get to the fishing village. They find it just wrecked, partially by the storm, but also they find that it has signs of being attacked. And as they poke around, they find the villagers hiding. And from what they're able to gather from the villagers, Black Widow knows a little bit of Chinese to help them. The village was dealing with the storm, but then ended up being attacked by men in, for lack of a better term, hazmat suits. Surmising that this must be AIM, Cap and Punisher decide the best thing to do is get the people off the island so that they can get medical attention and be out of the way of any danger that's about to come. So he has the shield agents from the submarine come and ferry them back onto the sub so that they can be evacuated and treated. In the meantime, they find the base of operations in the village, and it looks like it had been shut down. Some shield agents from the submarine are placed there to try and get it up and going and to maintain contact with the team as they go into the jungle. Now, Frank takes point, and everybody follows in afterwards in standard military squad formation, except for Johnny, who's just, as a civilian, is generally keeping near Captain America, like I said before. They go into the jungle, and Black Widow and the Punisher notice that there's surveillance equipment set up, and pretty advanced surveillance equipment too, pretty well hidden. Punisher just knocks them out, not wanting to be watched, and Black Widow's curious as to why they haven't been attacked, but she's able to take a look at the stuff, and between her, or essentially she's able to look at the tech and identify it as AIM tech. So they surmise that AIM must have came in, attacked the village and the shield agents, and must be further in studying the energy. So they continue on. There's a little bit of debacle with the tar pit, but I think Moon Knight and Punisher get stuck in a tar pit. Admittedly, the storm's pretty bad, and they're moving through the jungle, and vision is limited to 10 feet. So it's pretty understandable that they fall into a tar pit. But long story short, they pull them all out. Johnny Blaze goes and grabs a branch and pulls Moon Knight out, while Black Widow and Captain America do a little acrobatics by climbing up into a tree. Captain America lowering Black Widow down to grab Frank, who was pretty deep in, and pull him back out. But after the tar pit debacle, they continue on, and they come to the perimeter of the prison. Now, no attack was done on them when they were in the jungle approaching, but as soon as they reach that perimeter of the prison, the security measures are just like that on them. Guard towers. There are a pair of guard towers with automated turrets that turn on them, as well as an attack helicopter. Now, Because of the proximity to this place that used to be a political prison, Johnny Blaze is just feeling Ghost Rider like scratching at the back of his skull, wanting to get out, because he can just feel all the suffering of the innocents that died here. So Johnny Blaze starts to glow, or he starts to heat up, and his eyes start to glow. The rain's like sizzling as it hits him, and he's leaning on a tree trying to hold it in, knowing that this might not be the right moment for it. Cap is like, Johnny, are you okay? What's wrong? Because Johnny has not told them, why he's there. All he's told them is that, Nick Fury picked him because of another guy. Essentially, he plays it off like the other guy, like Mark Ruffalo did in Avengers with the Hulk. But essentially, he's like, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm just holding back the other guy. And the copter attacks. Now, the attack copters, starts firing on them and essentially hits Johnny Blaze, which is enough to wake up the Ghost Rider. He just screams into the sky, which rattles the helicopter pilot a little bit. But he has his own problems, as Frank Castle and Captain America set to lose him. Cap, starts throwing a shield, and Frank is lobbing grenades at the thing. Pretty effective. Once Ghost Rider's up and going, he pulls out his chain and wraps his chains around like the leg of the copter, preventing it from fleeing as they shoot at it. And, it keeps shooting back pretty bad. Now, as for Moon Knight and Black Widow, who aren't engaged with the helicopter, they go after the turrets. They go right up to the perimeter wall of the prison, climb up, and proceed to shut down the turrets. And upon seeing that the prison has two more, Black Widow sets about doing that, while Moon Knight goes further into the facility to investigate. Ooh, pardon. Now, while Ghost Rider's holding onto this helicopter and Frank's lobbing grenades at it, trying to take out its guns and its missile turret, Cap, finally done with this, essentially, I think it was a rock outcropping or a tree, but essentially he runs and he jumps, like just taking the shield in one hand, and just smashes the canopy on the front of the helicopter, causing the pilot who's already rattled from Ghost Rider just being a demon in real life, causes him to crash. Ghost Rider immediately walks up, tears the canopy off, pulls the pilot out, tears off his helmet, and gives him the penance stare. The guy drops, his soul burnt. Now, Cap doesn't really push this, as a little strange what's going on with Ghost Rider, but on top of that, he knows that these guys are AIM and are to him, they're enemy soldiers right now. It's understandable that there's going to be casualties, so he doesn't really try to stop Ghost Rider. Instead, he gets back on mission, and he, grabs Frank Castle and heads on in. Frank Castle, places a bomb, blows up the perimeter wall so that they have a hole to go into. They're just going to flat out assault the place, and Ghost Rider's more than happy to oblige. They go on inside. Black Widow moves around the perimeter wall, dodging cannon fire, as she makes it to each of the turrets in turn and shuts them down. Lots of acrobatics are had, lots of flips and such. And Moon Knight, who makes it in the facility, finds that the center of it is just a big hole going down into the ground. Looks like it was dug out, and there appears to be like a lab down there. Out of it, the big beam of energy is shooting up into the sky. And he goes down and sees that there's a lab down there. There are several AIM scientists down there, but they're all dead. They appear to be a little melty, and from what he sees, the energy is originating from a strange glowing platform that appears to be technological in nature, and is hooked up to a bunch of AIM equipment. He notices that from essentially the entire team was equipped with little radiation cards to tell them He sees that the color's changing, and he's starting to feel ill just being around the thing. So he pulls back to go back and report what he found. As he goes back and the team's entering the facility, they set off, essentially they set off some security measures, and several AIM robots awaken to, defend the lab. Now, Ghost Rider, Punisher, Captain America, and Moon Knight all set about fighting the AIM robots. Widow, who sees what's going on from the perimeter wall, rewires one of the cannons to run manually and starts backing them up with the cannon fire. As they're fighting the robots, Ghost Rider senses a great evil coming from the energy. Something is coming out of it. And from it appears a blue-skinned, almost stone-like floating being. Now we're not talking Thanos or Darkseid, if that's what you guys are thinking. It's actually, they never learned the name of it, but a little bit of metas. It's Blastar is who comes out of there, if you know who he is. Essentially a cosmic level villain. He comes out of the energy and immediately attacks them. Now, Ghost Rider, because he's all about punishing evil, beelines for the thing. He was fighting the robots after summoning his Hell Cycle. Upon seeing Blastar comes out, he wraps his chains around his neck and immediately starts driving around the facility, dragging Blastar behind him. Moon Knight, Punisher, and Captain America continue taking out the robots. Black Widow's kind of like aiding both, shooting at whoever the nearest target with the cannon is. Blastar starts firing energy at Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider, does a nice maneuver, pivots on his bike, runs back at him, punches him in the face, keeps going. Blastar just having enough of this because after Moon Knight sneaks up on multiple robots, taking out their weak point with a single blow, and Captain America, takes them out by bouncing a shield across them, and, Punisher grenade happy. They start turning on Blastar, shooting him as, he's being dragged along by Ghost Rider. Blastar has it, and just shoots straight up into the air, flies as high as he can, pulling the Ghost Rider along by the chain. Ghost Rider hangs onto the chain and just starts climbing up it after Blastar. Blastar starts shooting down. The only one able to even help Ghost Rider at this point now is Black Widow, who's aiming the cannon up and just firing up at Blastar. Now Blastar starts defending himself from the cannon fire just as Ghost Rider climbs up onto his chest and gives him the penance stare. And now we're talking, they're up in the sky. They're like, I forget how, I think it was like 80 feet or so. They're up in the sky. He gives him the penance stare, burning out his soul. And Blastar tries to resist, but he's just blown away. His soul's burnt out, and he falls lifeless to the ground. Ghost Rider kind of clings to him and uses him as a body shield, but regardless, boom! They both hit the ground like a frickin' comet. And they both lay there for a while. Ghost Rider appears to be fine, just wounded. Essentially, he's laying there. So the others go down into the lab and investigate. Even though, Moon Knight reports what he saw. They go down in and see if they can turn off the device. Fortunately, between Moon Knight and Black Widow, they're able to essentially use the devices to shut down this platform. And this energy dissipates. Now, Ghost Rider, who has come around by now, comes down and he sees that the energy's gone. He's told that the energy came from this thing. So immediately, he goes to smash it. Because evil came out of the energy. This is a source of evil. So he's intending to smash this thing. Now, Nick Fury contacts him about this time as Frank and Captain are like, whoa, hold on. This thing's radioactive. We don't know what's going to happen if you smash it. Ghost Rider's, this is a source of evil. If this is a source of evil, if you're afraid of dying, leave. And they're like, hold on. Nick Fury contacts them about this point, as immediately, as soon as the energy's gone, the storm starts to clear up, it starts going away. So Nick Fury is actually able to contact them directly from off the island now. Communications were being hampered by whatever this energy was. But with it gone, he's able to contact them and find out what's going on. They report what they see, and he says there's still considering that's radioactive, that could be very bad if he destroys that. There's still civilians in the area, and if the radiation off of that is anything like a nuclear reactor, that could threaten the mainland as well. Captain America, now hearing that, he manages to talk down Ghost Rider by saying that there's a lot of innocents that will be harmed if he destroys this thing, because the radiation from it will kill the innocents. Pretty much drops the right word for Ghost Rider to decide not to destroy it, and Ghost Rider go with no one else to fight. Just lets Johnny Blaze, essentially drops his form and lets Johnny Blaze come back, who is promptly sick from the radiation that is around. Essentially, they're not finding any more AIM officers. S.H.I.E.L.D. comes in, evacs them out, and sends Bruce Banner in to study the device. About a week later, after the heroes have, get a little rest and are recuperated, Nick Fury calls them in and tells them he wants to share some information that they found through the device. From what they could tell, the energy that was being emitted by the device was a rip in space-time. And it wasn't really being emitted, it was more being open. And essentially from what they can tell, was the device itself is actually not from, our position in space-time. It's from the other side of wherever this rip came from. And from what they were able to get out of the device, they got essentially like a security video that shows a couple of armored figures working on the device. Ones that nobody recognizes. From them talking to one another, they're able to learn their names. One apparently goes by the name Doom, and the other by the name Kang. From what they discuss, it appears that the pair were collaborating on the device, which would allow Kang to rewrite history so that his opposition would never exist, and he could rule over humanity and prevent future cataclysms. Now, his work was interrupted by the man named Doom, who essentially he betrays Kang, saying that if he can't, or that he is no mere puppet to anyone, and if he will not rule, then neither will Kang. There's an explosion, and both end up disappearing into the rip in space-time. Now, that's a video that they got out of the device. Nick Fury's not sure how, as to the true context of that, but he felt that they deserve, for what they did, they deserved to know what happened. Or at least, that's what he showed them. And that the session generally ended there, but that's also that's the intro adventure. That's also kind of the introduction to why there is a reboot. Kang was going to rewrite the universe so that the heroes never existed, and he could go about his plans in the modern era uninterrupted. But Doom, who he was using to help create this device, betrayed him and interrupted his work, thus making his attempt only partially true. He was able to rewrite history and prevent heroes from being born for a certain period of time. Now they're popping up again. And now we find the newly born Marvel Universe, this 2014 Marvel Genesis Universe, started off with our starting Avengers. Now from here, Bruce Banner is left to study this still radioactive device, as he is the top energy expert in S.H.I.E.L.D., and it is put in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s care. From there, we'll have to see what develops. I know I'm running the next session, so I do have ideas for that. But essentially, for my next session, it's based off of what has currently happened so far, and the only villains I have access to are, villains of the current characters. Granted, since S.H.I.E.L.D. is there, that means I have AIM. Since Captain America's there, that means I have Hydra. So those are two big organizations right there. Same for, I have Mephisto with Ghost Rider. I have the Magia and Kingpin with the Punisher. And, with Moon Knight, yeah, I'm going to be honest, I don't know too many Moon Knight villains. But, doesn't matter. Point being is we have new Avengers, and we have new occurrences. Stories will develop off of what we have so there. But that's the first session. Playing it, it was a lot of fun. I look forward to see how the storyline progresses as, new origins for heroes and stuff, or heroes and villains can occur since this is like a rebooted universe. So, I'll update you guys with reports of each new session as it comes out. I figured why not chronicle the Marvel Genesis universe's timeline. Oh, one thing I did forget to mention about Blastar being burnt out and dead. Essentially, another thing that we decided that for this Marvel Genesis universe, in order to, we decided two things to make it a little bit more unique. And essentially, one, no X-Men whatsoever. The X-Men, all X-Men characters are in a separate universe. That is a parallel universe to this one. This is everything that is not X-Men related. Two, deaths are final. So when I say Blastar's dead, I mean Blastar's dead. If heroes die during mission, they die. Dead. Dead. No clones, no knocked back in time, none of that stuff. If a character dies, they die, and stories develop from there. So yeah, that was the first session. I look forward to seeing where it goes. I'll keep you guys updated. If you've really watched this long, then I really count myself lucky to have you as a subscriber. I hope you enjoy future videos. Until next time, guys.